Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. With the summer months beginning to approach and temperatures starting to soar, talk would in any normal year turn to the summer holidays. But with the coronavirus continuing to rumble on, travel and tourism throughout Europe has been taking a real beating. So in this video, we'll run through what Europe has been doing when it comes to travel and tourism, and what the future may hold for it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you think you've already subscribed, then double check for me, because there's a lot of you who haven't made the jump over to TLDR EU just yet. We don't just talk about the European Union here, we discuss all kinds of European topics, so if you're into that, then subscribe and hit the bell icon. So, back to the video. It's no secret that the coronavirus has hit countries hard. We've covered in some detail now the specific impacts in a wide range of countries, but of particular note is the tourism industry. With international travel all but completely stopped, people are invariably warning about the long-term impacts. The World Travel and Tourism Council, towards the end of April, estimated that 100 million job losses in the travel and tourism sector could happen, with 75 million of them in the G20 and 13 million in Europe alone. The sheer economic and cultural value of the traditional summer break is far from minor. Many local industries thrive and depend on tourism. Millions of jobs across Europe depend on it. According to a report from the UN's World Tourism Organization, Europe accounts for the world's largest share of international tourist arrivals, with 619 million arrivals recorded in 2016, equivalent to 50% of the world's total. From a financial point of view, this translates into receipts of 406 billion euros. With estimates putting tourism at contributing 10% of the EU's GDP, creating some 26 million jobs. And when we look at European countries individually, tourism's impact continues, accounting for 13.2% of Italy's GDP, 14.6% of Spain's, 15.4% of Austria's, 19.1% of Portugal's, and 20.6% of Greece's. With such a monumental section of the economy at risk in a wide array of European countries, it's no surprise that Europe has attempted to put in some measures to get the travel and tourism sector back up and running. On the 13th of May, the European Commission published its guidance on how to safely resume travel and reboot Europe's tourism in 2020 and beyond, which evidently stresses the economic and social need to reopen borders as quickly as possible. As member states manage to reduce the circulation of the virus, blanket restrictions to free movement should be replaced by more targeted measures. If a generalised lifting of restrictions is not justified by the health situation, the Commission proposes a phased and coordinated approach that starts by lifting restrictions between areas or member states with sufficiently similar epidemiological situations. So-called air bridges, corridors, or travel bubbles, a concept we're looking to cover on the UK channel soon. Part of the wider guidance was guidance for the progressive resumption of tourism services and health protocols in hospitality establishments, in which it's quite clear the extent of the battle, not just in Europe, but that the world faces in this sector. A balance must be achieved between reopening countries and preventing a dreaded second wave of infection. With the gradual lifting of restrictions on travel-related activities, it's expected that citizens will gradually resume domestic and intra-EU travel. Lifting restrictions too quickly may cause a sudden resurgence in infections. Until a vaccine is available, the needs and benefits of the travel and tourism need to be weighted against the risks of a resurgence of cases, requiring the reintroduction of confinement measures. It's with this in mind that the guidance is clear that a return to the traditional summer break and way of doing things isn't on the cards just yet, with the Commission recommending that physical distancing is maintained in communal areas where guests are likely to gather, such as establishing a maximum number of guests allowed in each common facility, places like restaurants, cafes, bars, and lobbies, as well as saying that allocating slots or making available digital slot booking for meal times or visits to pools or gyms should be considered. And that's just on the ground. When it comes to travel, such as in airplanes, a number of European airlines and countries have put in exceptional measures, ranging from requiring some sort of quarantine upon landing and the use of face masks, to testing and certificates for travel. All of this will invariably increase costs on airlines and push down demand even further, at a time when airlines are already struggling. Demand for European carriers dropped some 99% on last year, while capacity too dropped 97%, prompting again some drastic measures by EU states and airlines. Germany has allowed all airlines to defer payments of air travel taxes, and in return for a 20% stake, has agreed a bailout in the region of €9 billion for its national flag carrier, Lufthansa, who at one point were losing €1 million an hour and edging ever closer towards administration. France has, in a similar fashion to Germany, allowed for the deferral of air taxes, but restricted it to French flag carriers. And Italy has set aside €500 million for airlines with an Italian license. EasyJet plans to cut 4,500 jobs and reduce capacity to about 30% during July, August, and September, with the expectation a full recovery won't happen until 2023. And at least €9 billion and potentially up to €11 billion has been pledged by the French and Dutch governments to support Air France KLM. In the words of The Atlantic, Europe's proposals are partly rooted in a desire to spare the tourism sector, but they also stem from something deeper, a longing to retain a fundamental part of European life. With Margrethe Vestager, Executive Vice President of the European Commission and Europe's Competition Commissioner, stating that the summer season is the lungs of Europe. It's a time when you breathe, in order to get the energy and everything you need for the rest of the year. Many countries have made outward pleas to welcome back tourists. Italy took a calculated risk to reopen its borders to fellow EU citizens from the 3rd of June. Greece expects to reopen to tourists on the 15th of June. Spain wants to re-establish free movement for citizens domestically, with international travel to Spain starting up from the end of June. Poland has allowed for the reopening of restaurants, with international borders likely to be lifted from the 13th of June, with the Czech Republic set to open 2 days later. The Netherlands will lift restrictions on travel from all EU and Schengen zone countries, barring Sweden and the UK. And Portugal declared that tourists are welcome, with some health checks and no compulsory quarantine. The issue is that even if these countries do open themselves back up, it doesn't mean that people will actually go there. The International Air Transport Association, the trade association setting the vast majority of standards in air travel, commissioned a survey towards the end of April, looking at the intentions of travellers. While 60% said they anticipated to return to travel within a month or two of containment, 40% indicated that they could wait 6 months or more, and 69% responded that any travel would likely be delayed until their personal finance situation stabilised. And in other countries like China and Australia, where cases have begun to slow, there hasn't been a substantial recovery in air travel. The IATA's Director General and CEO highlighted the issue. In some economies, the spread of COVID-19 has slowed to the point where governments are planning to lift the most severe elements of social distancing restrictions. But an immediate rebound from the catastrophic fall in passenger demand appears unlikely. People still want to travel, but they're telling us that they want clarity on the economic situation and will likely wait for at least a few months after the all clear before returning to the skies. As countries lift restrictions, confidence-boosting measures will be critical to restart travel and stimulate economies. The lack of confidence certainly seems to be the main issue here. Some people remain skeptical and in some incidents are scared about the safety implications of air travel in the context of the virus. Essentially, when it comes to asymptomatic carriers, those with the virus that exhibit no symptoms. But airlines have been at pains to stress the safety measures that they're putting in place. But will it be enough? Do you plan on travelling internationally this summer? And if not, why not? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to know more about the concept of air bridges, don't forget to subscribe to our UK channel, where we plan to cover it soon. Be sure to subscribe to TLDR EU for more updates on this and other European issues as they play out. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified every time we post. Also, you can find more from us across all social networks simply by searching for TLDR News. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible.